Hello and welcome to The Agenda with me, Graham Hughes, and Phil Moorhouse from A Different Bias. How you doing, mate?
I'm all right, thank you.
Yeah, you good?
Yes.
So, I was just talking about your stocks and shares. Have you lost your shirt? Have you lost your yacht?
No.
Have you lost your pension?
No, I haven't actually checked on that yet. But again, I don't draw on that for a while, so we're okay.
Okay, cool. All right, well, I just want to first of all say a big shout out to everyone in the chat, especially Diz and Alice Durham. Also, Gallifreyan Red is in there as well. Sonic Shadow 191, and also Hayton Puds is in there, and Sarah Davis. Hi, Sarah Davis. If you'd like to join them in the chat, join our friends in the chat, just hit the subscribe button and wait for about 30 seconds, and they should be allowed to add your voice, add your opinion, but don't be a troll, or we will boot you off the channel. Okay, so we're getting into Trump's tariffs this morning, and we're going to be talking about its effects on the UK and what we feel like should be done by our British government and by us as British consumers. The US exports £60 billion a year in goods to the US. It's a huge trade partner. It's the biggest single trade partner if you don't count the EU as a whole. 10% tariff has been put on most goods, except for cars, steel, and aluminium, or aluminum, as they incorrectly say. That's 25%.
35%. The 10% is on top of that.
Yes, yeah, I mean, that's 25% plus the 10%, yeah. And then you've got the pharmaceutical companies and semiconductors have been spared, apparently. The government is drawing up a retaliatory list and 400-page document of 10,000 commodities that could face tariffs now, including bourbon, firearms, oil, clothes, and can the UK afford a trade war while facing a weak post-Brexit economy?
I mean, we don't want escalation. The retaliation thing, really. So there's two ways, like most countries haven't said anything yet. The countries that have are in two broad categories. So you've got the likes of China and Canada that has announced retaliatory tariffs. They both have enough trade with America to sort of make that stick. Yeah. Canada is the US's single biggest export market in terms of the latest figures we have at any rate. Yeah. Sometimes it changes place between... Actually, that's not true. That's just in terms of specific countries. It is actually the EU, which you should actually treat the EU as one because it is one market.
Yes.
They're
treating the EU as one market, aren't they? They're saying 20% tariffs, except on French dependencies around the world, which have their own tariffs because they just went on internet country codes.
Well, this is why they've also decided that the penguins and the seals are taking for America for a ride as well.
Heard of McDonald Island. How dare they? How dare they?
There was another uninhabited island as well, I think off the coast of Australia or something. But then there was another Australian island where it's like, so Australia got 10% tariffs, and then Norfolk Island, which is apparently Australian island as well, got something like 29% or something.
Yes. And that was because something was erroneously sent there once or something, like a pair of Wellington boots was sent there.
But it also, for me, it shows that... So normally, obviously, so Trump's had this policy. So, like all senior politicians, he has a policy. You say to your officials, turn this policy into reality. And what would then happen is your civil servants are actually experts on it. So they will then turn it into one that makes sense. That hasn't happened, suggesting that he's not using expert civil servants, that he's just... he's actually just given it to someone who doesn't know what they're doing.
Probably a 19-year-old using ChatGPT.
Could easily be. Because it was noted, remember after the inauguration, do you remember when he signed all those executive orders, like 50 of them or something daft? Yeah. So some lawyers were looking at the drafting of some of them and saying these were not drafted by lawyers. These were not drafted by people who understand the law. A lot of it seems to have actually come from AI or copy-pasted from various things and that. So I think that's what he's doing. I think he's giving tasks like this just to people who are like his people, rather than people who have the expertise to do it.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely mental.
It is. It's a crazy time to be alive. I'll tell you what's crazy. I put in the details for the show this morning and asked ChatGPT to write up the blurb for me. And it actually apologised. It said, Put in the blurb. This was done by ChatGPT, and then in brackets it said, "Sorry, world." It's becoming self-aware, Phil. It's becoming self-aware.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, I mean, these are significant challenges that the UK government are facing. We've been going on all our lives. Well, we haven't personally, but people have been going on about this so-called special relationship. Where is that now?
Right, it never existed. It was always just words. It was nonsense. It was just copium after the British Empire sort of collapsed.
Well,
I mean, America had. Yeah.
I was going to say Jeremy Hunt is now calling for Singapore on Thames again. We're hearing that.
Yeah,
resurrected from the Brexit days.
Well, they never, that was always their dream. That was always their dream.
Yeah.
So they'll never let it go. They'll never let it go. Yeah. We should be more like Singapore. Why is that, Jeremy? Because they only got a 10% tariff rate. So did we.
Yeah. That's a very good point, actually. So this is Trump has called our 10% tariff kind.
Yeah.
And we're being seen as we're in the friendlies club. We're in the friendlies club. But he did accuse us of raping and pillaging his country, which is quite rich coming from a rapist and a pillager.
Well, there's all sorts of mad stuff coming out. Like he's going on chlorine chicken again now, and he's saying that we are applying non-science standards. And this is like, but you're the one slashing scientific research in your own country.
Yeah.
Like, we should invite them here. We should actually boost scientific research funding and invite all their top Nobel laureates to come over here and do work in our universities. Did
you see the guy on Newsnight saying that we've got weak beef?
No.
There was an American representative, and he had a go at Europe because we wouldn't buy their chickens. And he said the beef that they've got, it's weak beef. They don't want our strong beef.
Yeah, sure. Okay. This was someone invited onto Newsnight.
Yeah.
Why?
American representative. They're all just absolute lunatics. But we're going to see, manufacturing over here in steel, particularly vulnerable.
I'm not sure about the steel thing. The steel industry is knackered anyway. It's really quite weak. And at some point, we're basically, it's already run down to the point where it's just really producing mostly what we need it to produce. And if we have to just take it into public hands just to literally produce what we need from it, then, that's what we'll just have to do.
Do you think that'll happen? Because they're talking
I don't know,
closing down Scunthorpe,
we
aren't they,
need
this week?
Steel is something that is a matter of national security. You cannot be dependent on steel, particularly from countries like, where are we going to get our steel from? America, China. India, or China. These are not countries. America, at one time, you would have said, okay, that's a stalwart ally, but not anymore. So you can't be dependent upon imports of steel, something that you need as a vital part of your national infrastructure, from countries with whom you may have economic or political difficulties in the future.
Mm.
So, and the steel industry is not that big now. Obviously, this is, the huge tariffs on them are not great news for them, but it's a knackered industry anyway in this country. There's nothing left of it other than literally what we need. It's much more serious for the car industry. It's not even like they can find another market for it.
This is Jaguar and Land Rover.
Well, the biggest thing I suppose would be, because some people are saying, a lot of the cars we export to America are like the luxury ones, and that's true. But we also send like Volkswagen Golfs over there. That's not for rich Americans. So, anyone in the car industry that is involved you don't even have to work in the factory, just in the supply chains for factories that produce Volkswagen Golfs or like Land Rovers, which are not, I know Land Rovers are a bit pricier, but they're still not for like the super rich. Like a McLaren or a Rolls Royce, if an American wants to buy that, they're gonna pay the extra, right?
Yeah.
But not necessarily for a Land Rover or a Golf. So anyone whose jobs are dependent on those supply chains are at risk at the moment because of this.
Yeah, absolutely. So Business Secretary Johnny Reynolds has been he's been pushing this sort of calm but tough rhetoric. And what options are there for the government at the moment to fight back against this or not fight back?
At the moment, we don't have to fight back because we are already working on a trade deal. Now, I am going to make the point in a video later on today on my own channel. So Trump wants, I think that, because lots of people are coming up with lots of mad reasons why Trump is really doing this, because his stated reasons don't make sense. For me, the most likely reason, especially given some of the things that have been reported today, the most likely reason is he's just using it to try and force countries to agree to a hasty new trade agreement with America, which is much more in America's favor, right? For example, I saw a tweet from Eric Trump yesterday, one of his idiot spawn, saying, oh, the countries that are first in, I've seen this all my life, you know, the countries that are first in the queue will get a great deal, and the ones who are the last to deal with us will get a terrible deal. And apparently, according to Faisal Islam, who's like the BBC's economics editor, there's been a lot of this going on, what he calls Trump's proxies. So people who represent Trump basically pushing this idea that world leaders should be rushing to Trump to do a deal with him in return for lowering these tariffs. Yeah. So that's what I think Trump wants. I think that's what's really behind it. I don't think he's trying to crash the global economy. I think he's trying to browbeat countries into doing a deal. So people will inevitably go, well, if Trump is wanting countries to agree these deals, why are we working on it? It's, well, because in our case, we were already doing that. And the deal we're working on is something that Labour wanted anyway. So even with that, it's a deal we would have wanted to try and negotiate with Harris. Now, she may not have been interested any more than Biden was. Trump was interested. But the deal that at the moment is being discussed is the one that Labour wants anyway.
Yeah.
And of course, we don't care about giving Trump a free dinner at the ballot. Some people have an issue with it, but I don't see why we don't have to go to Balmoral. But if Trump starts making demands that are beyond acceptable, like chlorinated chicken, or like online safety laws, or our equality laws, or things like that, then I do think that we should walk away. In terms of retaliatory tariffs, I do not think, like, we're not going to hurt with our... Canada can hurt America with its retaliatory tariffs. America's not that dependent on our trade.
Well, yeah, you can say that, but it's not about destroying them. It's just, look, the way that capitalism is, the mentality of it is you've got to grow every quarter. You've got to grow every quarter on quarter till the end of the universe, right? And if they see like their share profits going down by 1%, they'll be like, oh shit, something's gone terribly, terribly wrong. We need to launch a new product. We need to spend billions on advertising, etc., etc. They want like headless chicken. So it's not a case of destroying Coca-Cola to do this. But if everyone in Britain stopped drinking Coca-Cola tomorrow, boom, Coca-Cola would sit up and take notice, even though their stock price hasn't been going down.
Coca-Cola is not in charge. Trump is, and Trump has only just come to power, and he thinks he's got to. Remember, Trump. We know that Starmer, for example, who's only just come to power, is far too comfortable, in my view, with unpopular ratings at the moment, because he knows that things are going to get better over the next few years and the election is in a few more years. Trump, it's even worse with Trump. Remember, hanging over his head is prison, literally prison, and maybe bankruptcy, like a big one this time. He thinks he's got 2 years to rig the system in his favour and stay in power forever.
By making everyone else as poor as he's going to be.
He doesn't care about the stock market. He doesn't care about any of these things. He doesn't care. He only cares about his plan, and he thinks he's got 2 years to achieve it. The only thing that can stop Trump is a massive backlash, which is so fearsome that it forces Congress to cock block him. That's the only thing that stops him. I've not heard anyone come up with anything else. The idea that Trump gives a shit about the people who bankrolled him because they thought he'd be good for the stock market, he doesn't care, because he's not going to go to prison because someone isn't making as much in dividends. Yeah. So no, we cannot do anything to bite back. That's not to say retaliatory tariffs would work. But
these companies don't have to go after him directly. They can go after him indirectly.
They've got no power to do so. No power at all. It's not the chief executives. It's not the chief executives of Coca-Cola or Nike or Apple that are going to do these things. It's actually, ironically, ordinary MAGA who go to Walmart and see that the cost of all their cheap Chinese shit has gone up by 50%. But will that even... Anymore. No.
That's the Chinese goods.
But the thing is, he's got them thinking that it's short-term paying for long-term gain. So they may give him his 2 years. That's the thing. So we cannot, normal economic rules do not work. Do not work. So if we retaliate, we cannot retaliate on anything that puts up our own inflation, because that's like you're trying to lose the next election. We could do it on luxury products. We could slap Tesla. We could properly slap Tesla.
Oh, I'd like to slap Tesla.
There's a few luxury because at the end of the day, there's people around the world boycotting Teslas. We're not in this country. We're pissing still buying them. So the government could go, right, we'll put a stop to that. 50% tariff on Teslas, for starters. And so we could certainly do things like that, but I don't think it would make any sense at all to put tariffs on anything that ordinary people buy, because that just pushes up inflation. We're trying to solve, the Labour have said the single most important issue is the cost of living. Why would we make that worse? So, and there's a reason why almost no country has announced retaliatory tariffs. You've got Canada, you've got China, the EU have said they're going to, but they haven't decided what yet. That's it. No one else has. Even Mexico hasn't, and actually Mexico could.
Yeah.
The best way to deal with it is, but I know there's a load of super chat, sorry. The best way to deal with it is actually just to help the companies affected, like Spain and Taiwan have announced. And in our case, say, actually, yeah, these tariffs, yeah, they're costing us a bit of trade. But we could lower our trade barriers with Europe. They seem keen on that, and actually more than compensate.
Yes, which is something I was going to go.
Which is what will be discussed next year. That's for next year's.
Let me just do these super chats quickly. Jovian, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. He worries that Labour will offer up the NHS, the US insurance industry, and allow dodgy food imports. I don't think he will. And then SG, thank you very much for the £10 super chat. Adam Musk, town hall before Wisconsin SC election. A MAGA from the audience asked when the Doge checks will be mailed. So now maggots will be expecting tariff checks soon too. Yeah, the Doge checks and the tariff checks. But yeah, going back to Europe, you're saying next year? Why not this year? What are we waiting for?
Because they're scheduled for next year. We do have a summit next month.
So but this is the renegotiations next year, just to be clear.
Next year,
these were going to happen
TCM.
Anyway. Right? Because this was in the withdrawal agreement that we had with the EU. We said we will review it in 5 years' time. 5 years is up, baby. So that comes next year. But this year, we've got a meeting next month. Yeah?
Yes, but that's going to be on defence. But that is in itself, I mean, there'll be more attention on that now. That in itself will be useful because that's how we work on the, not only the agreement on joint procurement, this EU procurement idea, defence procurement scheme, but also we can start to talk about other things as well. So, that's the whole point of having talks on anything. Lammy made this point last year, when he was talking about wanting a defence and security agreement. Now, he's sort of been shifted to the side a little bit. It's now we've got now a specific minister for Europe, Nick Thomas Simmons, so he's doing most of the day-to-day discussion now rather than Lammy. But Lammy was nonetheless making the point last year that he just wanted this is before Trump and before everything else. He just wanted a security agreement with the EU. He didn't want it to be particularly detailed. He didn't care about that. He just wanted a quick agreement because as soon as you start agreeing one thing, you start talking about other things. And he just wanted to get that process going. And that was obviously him speaking on behalf of the government. So that's the government's position. They just want talks to happen that haven't been happening for years.
One of the things that is happening right now, as we're talking, is that China have announced retaliatory tariffs of 34% on American imports. So that's a full-on trade war now.
That's just one of their measures. They've also added some US companies to their export control list. So that's export control list now. China had already been restricting some like rare earth metals, for example, for American tech companies as part of this. So that sounds, and I don't know the details, but that sounds to me like being mild the same. So China obviously has a great deal of natural resource wealth that American companies need.
Yeah.
So it sounds to me like he's basically saying, not only are we going to shaft your imports, but we're going to make it harder for you to produce things in America by not selling you the raw materials. Where are you going to get them from? Oh, Ukraine? Yeah, good one. Canada, because Canada's another one where America gets a lot of raw materials from. Oh yeah, you seem to be starting a trade war with Canada. America's screwing itself over here.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I don't think that there's stock exchanges in New York are open yet. I think they open in 10 minutes time. So it'll probably happen while we're on.
But other markets have gone down on this for the
Yeah,
second
Hong Kong
day.
is
So,
down, Germany's down, Europe's down, S&P.
actually, can I read you something out? Something that was quite spectacular. So Faisal Islam, I mentioned him earlier, BBC's economic editor. He said something remarkable. He's basically alluding to the fact that as bad as the stock market crash was, investors still ultimately don't believe Trump's going to go ahead with his tariffs as he stated, even though he's already done it.
Yeah.
They're still acting. And this explains a great deal because I noticed, I think it was Bloomberg that said they had upgraded their estimation of a US recession, but it was still below 50%. And I thought, given these tariffs, if they go ahead and stay in for the long term, that is surely going to cause a US recession. Surely. You've just basically increased the cost of a lot of common goods like iPhones and Nike trainers or sneakers and stuff like that by like 50%. But this makes sense if investors believe that Trump is ultimately not going to go ahead with it. And I know he's sort of like is the darling of the set at the moment, but Gary Stevenson makes this point on his channel that a lot of investors, they've got the biggest investors, the ones with loads of money that have inherited, are basically as thick as mince. And this is like it's like they've got these are the people, American investors back last autumn thought that Harris would be bad for the stock market and a Trump presidency would be good. And it's like they're not learning lessons at all. They don't understand the politics. They don't understand Trump's motivation. They need to understand Trump thinks he's got 2 years to make sure he does never have to, because if he just does his term 4 years, then he's out of power. He's going to be facing prison again. That hasn't gone away. As well as, serious investigations into his financial affairs. That's his plan. Yeah, his plan is to be president for life. And people need to understand that. And investors in America need to understand he's not doing this because he's a bit thick. He's doing it because he's put himself in a position where he has to stay in power.
Yeah, yeah. And its plan here is quite clear. It's that he's going to make everyone really poor, make people lose their homes, lose their jobs, so they've got absolutely nothing left to live for. And then one of those 330 million people who live in America is going to do something really fucking stupid. And when they do that stupid thing that ends up killing thousands of people, Trump is going to go, boom, that's it, martial law, federal state of emergency, suspend elections, no midterms, no presidential elections in 2028.
Interestingly, I mean, this is the day, of course, where the South Korean Supreme Court has kicked out, so is it Yoon, for doing the same thing. Trump will be banking on the fact that American Congress does not do the same thing.
Well, they won't. They're absolutely in fall with him. And and the numbers they need.
I think everyone's got their
everyone's too high.
Yeah, everyone. At the end of the day, there's a point at which the calculations have to change. We will see. Hopefully, it doesn't get that far.
Eddie Byrne says Tesla needed China's market desperately, which is interesting because it's like, Tesla are going to be bankrupt by the end of the year by the looks of things. I thought that was going to take a few years to actually kick in, but it's looking so bad for them. Their sales are down all across the world, America, Europe, everywhere. They are people are attacking Teslas on the street. No one can really sell them. There was an article in the Guardian about people stuck with these cars that they can't get rid of. There's protests going on outside Tesla dealerships, and absolutely toxic brand at the moment. No one wants to be associated with them except for Nazis, and they don't want to drive them because of electric cars, and they want to drive diesel cars with big exhaust that make loads of noise.
It's like
create lots of
it's
pollution.
decided to. It's an absolute madness for me, Musk. He is the richest man in the world. He was going to be the richest man in the world with the Harris presidency. So throwing his lot in, insulting his core customers, throwing his lot in with Trump. For what? So that he's already the richest person in the world. So he can be the richest person in the world by a bit more.
Yeah. His luck is running out by the looks of things, finally. Took a bit longer than it should have done. I mean, he's been
Well,
ripping people off for a very long time now, promising bullshit things that will never actually come to fruition, and getting huge subsidies from the American taxpayer and taxpayers from around the world. Don't forget, we've subsidised Tesla in this fucking country.
have you seen his latest desperate gambit on SpaceX?
No.
He's suggested, no, what is it? Not SpaceX, sorry, Starlink, the internet company. He's suggested, would you pay something like, specifically, I think it was for Europeans. I think it's quite a low price, like $10 a month or something like that for the broadband, if it came with free X premium. And it was like, I would pay more for it not to come with X premium, because having X premium right now is a badge of shame.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's an option in X. Actually, he'd make more on X premium if there was an option to not make it clear on X premium.
Yeah. It's mad, isn't it? Absolutely mad. Yeah, I think the New York Stock Exchange opens in 4 minutes.
Oh, let's get the old Financial Times.
Get the ticker. Get the ticker going. Get the ticker. It should have a ticker going across the bottom of the screen, and it shows all of the shares going down. Chris is saying Tesla is one of the least safest cars around. Yeah. I mean, those Cybertrucks that they've built.
Oh, I mean,
the biggest disaster of a car since what was it? The Ford, what was it called? The Edsler or something? There was a terrible Ford car that came out, and then you've got the DeLorean, which was a disaster. I mean, it could go back in time, which is pretty cool, but
it made itself a name. But what was it now? I remember seeing a video one time with the Cybertruck, and they had like lots of EVs with the self-closing boot. Trunk, they call it in America. And they were like putting like for your fingers in the way, but they're putting like cucumbers in the way and stuff. And every car, it came down, got to that bit, and then went back up again. Went back up. Cybertruck, bosh. Broken cucumber, that's your fingers gone.
There was a YouTuber who put his finger in there and broke his finger. Had to go to the hospital.
Got away with it. Then
the fact that it's glued together, Phil. It's glued together.
Well, they've had a thing recently.
And these Tesla owners are going, "Oh, but there's no other way of sticking a car together." And I'm saying, like, I'm sure there's welding and bolts and things.
But they're having to recall a load because there's a panel that might just randomly fall off, isn't there?
Yeah. The back of it just falls off because they use the wrong. Which is exactly what happens in Matilda, the film from the 90s with Danny DeVito, and he plays the crook selling his crappy cars, doesn't he? And he says, "Oh, you're supposed to bolt these bumpers on, but or fenders, they call them over there, don't they? You're supposed to bolt these fenders on, but I just glue them on." And she says, "But won't it fall off in the road?" He says, "Well, that's not my problem then, is it?" Yeah. Literally taking guidance on how to put a car together from Danny DeVito's character in Matilda. Unbelievable. The Ford I was trying to think of is called the Ford Edsel. And that was lampooned in The Simpsons when Homer Simpson got to design his own car. Coming back to Danny DeVito, who did the voice for his brother. His brother Herb in the episode of Brother, Where Art Thou? And he got to design a car for him. And it was a big disaster. Yes. What can I say? Because Homer Simpson shouldn't be going around designing cars, and neither should Musk. Tesla's use camera technology, and other cars are now using LiDAR technology. Basically, Tesla can't see printed roads like the Coyote paints for the Roadrunner. Teslas are overhyped crap. Look, 10 years ago, Teslas were the best in the world. Absolutely. But now everyone else has caught up, and some companies have just gone the extra mile, or 50 miles.
What miles. By protecting their customers' fingers?
Yes.
Tesla obviously think. Tesla obviously are of the view, well, what do you need fingers for? Everything's going to be smart and driverless. You don't need your fingers.
Well, this is what we're going to say about the safety. In a Tesla Cybertruck, if there's a fire inside the Cybertruck, you can't get out because the windows are too strong to kick out. You can't just kick the windows. And the manual handle for escaping is not in an obvious place. It's behind a hatch somewhere. So you got to, the car's on fire, upside down in a lake or something, and you've got to try and find the user's manual to find out how to get out of the damn thing. We just had a huge mega chat come in from Optimistic Nihilist. Thank you so much, Optimistic Nihilist. That is so kind of you. recommend both of you read Chronic Crisis of American Democracy by Benjamin Studebaker. He expertly explains how Americans won't accept the status quo, but won't accept the consequences of any change, even if good or for society overall, applies to UK.
I would say I don't need to. I keep trying to make this point. I've been trying to make this point for years. Whenever it applies to polling, very succinctly, whenever you've got people going, oh, the public are in favour of this, and you look in a poll, and I have to keep painstakingly pointing out, you're pointing to an outcome. Whenever you see a poll, and very few polls do this, but every now and then one does. Whenever you see a poll that says, okay, are you in favour of this outcome? Yeah, we are. Right. Are you in favour of doing it this way? No. This way? No. This way? No. And it happens all the time. So it does my head in all the time when people go, oh no, but the public are in favour of this, look, poll. It's like, yeah, now try and do a poll where you ask them if they're in favour of it with certain conditions, like rejoining the EU at the moment. Oh, people want it. If it means giving up the pound, no. Or even in terms of like the tax thing, you know, we had polling that people wanted investment in public services. But then when you did have some, there was some polling done. I can't remember if it was Ipsos did it or maybe More in Common. And it was like, right, do you want to do it by doing this? No, this, no, this, no. So governments have to try and, or genuine governments, they have to try and work out a way to deliver what the public want without telling them what they're doing to deliver it. That is actually how you have to operate. And so sometimes, I mean, you know, people should give the government shit over some things, but sometimes people give the government shit. It's like, well, why can't you just do this? The people want it. It's like, yeah, but they want it, but they don't want the government to do it. Like they want the outcome, but they don't want any mechanism which can achieve it.
It's NIMBYism. What do we need? More schools,
right,
more homes,
thinking,
more jails. Yeah, okay, well, can we build it next to you? No. Just to say, optimistic nihilist, thank you so much. That is so really generous and kind of you. Thank you so much for that. The mega chat animation just came up again. That was just a mistake, but you can have it again. Super chats come in though from Ivan, which is incredibly generous as well. 20 quid. The point I made earlier was specifically about the lack of assessments by governments on the mental health implications on these worldwide events. People like me are not considered and left to get on with it. And we were going to talk a little bit about this, Phil, at some point about sort of mental health provision under Labour. What are the specific? Do you know of the specific plans for mental health under Labour?
What they promised. I mean, it's such a huge thing because we basically don't have mental health provision. What they promised was very specific things aimed at young people.
Yeah,
I imagine as a start, because young people. I mean, the current like people in their late teens and early 20s. Must be the most badly battered in terms of mental health pressures. So it was including things like, you know, access to mental health in schools, local community hubs, again designed for young people. So there's supposed to be, it's in the manifesto, a fairly sizable boost in mental health provision and access, but targeted at young people. So in terms of like the rest of the general population, it's obviously one of these things that's far too huge. There's certainly no specific promises for it for anyone other than, as I say, the younger generation.
Yeah. I think it's a huge issue right now.
It's absolutely massive. I was very disappointed when mental health was downgraded from the shadow cabinet, because we just don't have any. We don't have mental health provision really.
And the thing is, you've got to kind of ask for it. There's no
even when you do.
I know even when you do, there's not much there. But like the fact that you've got to be proactive, and if your brain's not working like it should be, you're not feeling very proactive most of the time. I don't know about you, but that's not.
I mean, I've had this same thing when I was unemployed. Well, I've been unemployed twice, but when I was unemployed one time. When I think back to the way I was screwed over by various things, I said, well, I should have done this and I should have done that. For example, I had an insurance thing for my mortgage if I lost my job, and they just said, we're not paying out. And I should have gone, hang on a minute, I've got this thing. And I didn't. But that's because at the time, and I didn't recognize it at the time, but at the time I wouldn't have been thinking straight because I'd have been like deeply depressed. And you just sort of think, well, everything's against you. So you don't actually think rationally. You don't think, hang on a minute, no, that's not right. And this is the rational way to approach it. You just sort of or I did anyway, that's my experience, just quite often accept that life is shit.
Yeah.
And whereas if you have a physical problem, you can still think straight. So, if you break your leg, I need medical attention. Or if you're like shitting blood, I think I should see a doctor. Whereas if you've got something that is affecting your mental health, again, it is affecting your reasoning.
Yeah. Definitely. Okay, so let's go back onto the tariffs. Okay. So cool heads. This is what Reynolds and Starmer have been saying.
Yes.
Cool heads will prevail.
Well, at the moment, we're negotiating a trade deal. They should just carry on with that until such point as Trump asks for mad shit and demands it.
Yeah.
And even if he does, we can still just keep it going. Like, if it becomes clear that the trade deal that is acceptable to it isn't going to happen, then we're stuck with the 10% tariffs anyway. There's absolutely no harm with keeping the talks on to avoid having them increased out of spite.
Yeah. But at the same time, like, it's a 10% tariff. They've done that out of spite, and it's going to screw our economy. It's going to make the poorest people in our country poorer.
Doesn't have to. Because we have, like, for lots of other countries, it's like you can't really, you can try and find, like, Scottish whiskey producers are going to try and sell more into the Asian market, which they may have a chance at because China's obviously responded with retaliatory tariffs on the US. That will include on bourbon. So they may be able to sell more whiskey there. They may be able to sell more whiskey in Europe if, of course, Europe slaps tariffs on, assuming they haven't already, on bourbon and things like that. So, you can replace some American products around the world. But generally speaking, in a lot of countries, their businesses can't just find another market because the whole world is affected by these. Whereas we can.
There's more of us than there is in America, isn't there?
Only as, but that's the whole world acting in concert.
Yes.
Which doesn't very often happen.
Yeah, but we can send the berserkers out ahead. Do you know what I mean? Like China's our berserker. Just go out, 34% tariff, see you later. And we're like, I agree to an extent that the government should be negotiating and trying to get that, trade deal with the US.
We should be negotiating with the EU to, like...
But at the same time... Yeah.
Well, we can anyway. There's nothing to stop
pushing towards more trade with the EU. And also, I think that separate to what the government's doing, I think there should be a concerted effort by us in Britain to boycott American goods as much as we can. I know it's not easy. I know we're on an American platform at the moment. But, when there's a choice between Iron Brew or Vimto, when there's a choice between Vimto and Coca-Cola, people should drink Vimto, shouldn't they, Phil?
Yeah, yes. Vimto. Yeah, don't choose between Vimto and Iron Brew. I don't like Iron Brew, really, in all honesty.
Chris C dropped in a super chat. Thank you very much for the £10 super chat. That's really kind of you. Labour could impose a 25% digital services tax on social media platforms and use the revenue to improve mental health services, as it's the harmful content on those platforms, which is a major factor, which is true. I was going to bring this up. It's a 2% tax at the moment, which was brought in 2020. And this is something that the Mango Mussolini wants us to get rid of. Do you think we should or will?
So we're definitely not getting rid of it because Starmer said so. The issue, what Trump isn't actually, this is a lot of misunderstanding about this. Trump isn't asking us to get rid of it. What he's asking us to do is to equalize it. So reduce it for large tech companies, which are his tech bros, and make smaller tech companies pay more. So the actual end result may even be about the same or a bit less. What I would say is it's a tax that at the moment brings in 800 million a year. So it's not even a billion. If in return for that, you can protect billions of pounds of trade, then yes. If, however, I mean, again, I will agree to almost anything that ends up net good for us. Because at the moment, like, the 10% tariffs are a thing, so that has to be factored in. Can we agree a deal that is better for us than the current situation? If the answer is yes, then yes, we should do it. If the answer is no, then no, we shouldn't do it. So it's really that simple. The chlorine chicken and the hormone-fed beef, like, the Tories did get away with lowering our food standards for the Australia-New Zealand deal, but they couldn't do the chlorine chicken and hormone-fed beef just became like bywords or by terms, whatever you want to call them, for lower food standards. The public was so against them. There's zero chance of that happening. there's several other things as well that makes no sense. So we're not, if Trump insists that we do something that we're not prepared to do, then it's like we're stuck with those tariffs anyway. But yeah, if the thing is as well, people are going on about like this being appeasement stuff. It's like, do you know how a trade deal works? All trade agreements include give and take. Like, conceding something in a trade agreement is not appeasing. Appeasing is when you just do everything they want and get nothing in return.
Yeah.
Now, if we come back with a trade deal that gives Trump things and we get nothing in return, then yeah, okay, that'll be appeasement. But that's not what's being discussed at the moment.
Yeah.
So we should, because this is people's jobs. It's people's jobs if these tariffs stay in place. So they need to actually try and protect as many of those jobs as possible. I mean, Spain have just announced like a 14 billion euro package to try and protect. I don't know how well it will protect their businesses, but also, I mean, imagine telling Rachel Reeves she's got to find another, like, what would that be? Over 10 billion pounds.
10 billion, yeah.
Imagine that. It's like, Jesus Christ. So there aren't too many options we have, specifically because our economy is flat. But the options we do have is we can expand more into the EU. We can actually say to them, look, do a deal, right? We'll do a deal. I mean, I would like them to start thinking about the customs union more seriously. But even actually, if they can get what they said in the manifesto, which they will, obviously they couldn't promise it in the manifesto, but they said in the manifesto they wanted to do this, the SPA, the veterinary agreement, the mutual recognition of qualifications, all that stuff. If they can get all that, that actually would be worth more to us than the cost of Trump's tariffs.
Yeah.
And I saw, and I wish I could find it. Unfortunately, I can't find it. There was a report, and I can't remember where it was, and I can't bloody find it. But there was a report that actually said that we would get more out of even those. It had nothing to do with the single market or customs union, just the things that Labour were working on anyway. If we could get them, it would be worth more than the cost of Trump's tariffs. And at the time, they were assuming Trump's tariffs would be 20%.
Yeah.
And it was still working out better for us.
Yeah.
So, yes, we have options. But at the moment, the talks are set on trade with the EU for next year anyway. That's not going to be rushed. The EU are in a particular rush on it.
Why isn't it going to be rushed though? I mean, because it's
no one's
better
in a
for
rush to do it.
It's better for the
They're not in a
EU
rush. Yeah, but
to
they're not in a
get
rush.
rid of those trade barriers with the UK. I mean, look, I know
They've
we're
got
not as big as America, but we're still
but they're
nearly 70 million people.
But they don't feel they need to rush because they've got other things to deal with. Ukraine is still a big part of their talking points, and so is now Trump. So actually, ironically, although you could say the urgency is greater, the number of things on their priority list has also grown. Yeah,
but it's not like they have to just do one thing at a time. The same people who are negotiating about defence in Europe aren't necessarily the ones who are negotiating about trade.
No, but the EU Commission still only has like 26 members. It's like 26 people.
That's true.
And they all have like different areas anyway that they look at. So
what's happening with Orban? Is Orban on his way out then? I mean, not in Hungary, obviously, but they've been talking about activating Article 7 to take away their voting rights and their veto.
Yeah. He's a bit of a dick, basically.
Do you think that'll happen?
Well, if they're not going to let him. Like Russia has now become a much greater threat to Europe because of Trump.
Yes.
So they're not going to let Orban, this relatively small country in the EU, destroy Europe's security, which is already now. I mean, European security is now as fragile as the UK economy, really.
Yeah.
Although there is a plan to sort of eventually deal with it. I mean, Macron has said it could take 10 years. So yeah, they will 100% stop Orban delaying things.
There was an article today in the Guardian, I think, saying we have to remember that Trump is only in for another 4 years. And not to do anything, that is going to set things up for decades as a response to what he's doing.
Bollocks.
I think he's still going to be there in 4 years. I think he's going to be there in 8 years. I think he's going to be there for the rest of his life.
I don't think that. It's possible. I don't actually think he will. But it doesn't matter. Like, this is the same thinking people had after his first term. It was the same thinking. Oh, he's gone. Biden's back. Everything's fine now. America's back to normal. And then what happened? Loose thinking. You have to assume that at some point someone replaces him that thought that Trump, he was sort of on the right lines, but he was a bit dim. I'm a bit cleverer. I've got a better idea.
Yeah, yeah.
Excuse me.
Just before we come back, Ken M, thank you very much for the £2 super chat, mate. Respect to the chat. Yeah, I gave that a like. And also, I just wanted to say I was wrong about I was wrong. I haven't made me look like I was wrong animation. I've got to make one, Phil, for when I'm wrong. I thought that the stock market was opening about 15 minutes ago. It doesn't. It opens in 45 minutes time. I just double checked. The time in New York is actually 8:45 now. So and it opens at half 9. That's a bit lazy, isn't it? Opening at 9:30. You was expecting it to be a bit earlier than that.
They get pissed, you see, these investors, particularly at the moment. They're probably still throwing them off the Empire State Building. I mean, Lammy's been saying that today. He's been drawing on the Great Depression, hasn't he, by saying, hinting the fact that America has been going back to, it hasn't done this for like a century, he said. So he's obviously referencing the fact that the last time America did something like this, it led to the Great Depression, or it's believed to have led to the Great Depression. I mean, yes. I think there is dispute over that. But
the Great Depression, the Wall Street crash, and then as a reaction to that, they brought in tariffs, and they were an absolute disaster. And it was just before the Great Depression. So there's definitely a factor in that. And as a result of the Smoot-Hawley Act, they ended up taking away the power to set tariffs from Congress because they had fucked it up and gave it to the president.
So let's take it away from like hundreds of people and give it to one person.
Yes,
what could go wrong?
I hope they don't go crazy. There's a bill that's been introduced in Congress to say that Trump's tariffs need to be the power needs to be taken off him. But in order for that to get through, it needs to be approved in the House of Representatives and the Senate, and it has to be signed by Trump.
Yeah,
it's just not going to happen.
Well, this is what's happening at the moment. Basically, there's belly aching going in Congress. They're basically going, this isn't very good. It's not very good at all. But they're not actually doing anything.
Yeah.
They're not doing anything.
Jovian, thank you very much for the £5 super chat, my friend. Vance might be the next Republican candidate. I hope he is, because he's awful. He's got no charisma. He's not going to win.
Well, no, you say that again. I think the level of voter suppression will be certainly stupid evil might stop their plans, but their plans are. The thing is that the results are always so tight. You don't have to stack the odds very much in your favour to guarantee you'll win. Yeah, because the results are always so close. So much more voter suppression, and actually they could literally get a pig to run for president and they'll win.
Well, the thing is that in the Wisconsin Supreme Court election on Tuesday, Elon Musk put millions in.
Yeah.
Well,
he says it is.
As
you alluded to, he's got to send the checks off now.
Yeah, he hasn't sent the checks off. But it all backfired, and it wasn't just Democrat voters who said Elon Musk put them off voting for the Republican. Republican voters said it as well.
Yeah.
He's really deeply unpopular.
But the lesson they can learn there is to stop Musk getting involved. Just go in the background, mate. Because the thing is, if Musk hadn't interfered, then the suggestion is that the Republican candidate would have actually won. So the problem there was Musk, not Trump or MAGA.
Then again, he didn't really interfere in the special elections in Florida this week, and both of those candidates were down half of what they got last time. So they won by 30 points. They won by 30 points in November when Trump won in those places, and then that lead has gone down to 15%. So anyone who is less than 15 points ahead of their Democratic rival is starting to worry, and the Musk had nothing to do with that election.
Maybe or maybe not. You don't really know. He didn't directly interfere in that one, but the news of his interference in Wisconsin would have been there still, wouldn't it?
Yeah. But I mean, I'm a bit like you with this. I don't hold out hope that they're not going to go in for mad voter suppression everywhere possible. I think he's going to declare a state of emergency and suspend elections.
I think he intends to. Well, in terms of suspending elections, I think if he's satisfied that he's rigged it sufficiently in his favour, he won't need to. He may even plan, because he may actually want the midterms to go ahead. Because if he can stack the odds in his favour, because at the moment, why can't Trump have a third term? Ultimately, because the Constitution stops him. How does he change the Constitution? He needs much more Republicans in Congress. So the current Congress arithmetic is no good for him. I think his plan A is more likely to be stack the odds in his favour. I don't know whether it's possible in the next midterms to get those numbers up, but if it is, then that then allows him to change the Constitution. So I think he's more likely to want midterms to go ahead.
But it's a bit more complicated than that.
I'm sure
because it has to go through the Senate and be a super majority in the Senate, but also it has to be ratified by 2/3 of the states around America, and I don't think he's got the numbers to do that. I don't think he's got the ratification to actually change it. That's why I think he's just going to go for Plan A, which is just declare an emergency. And he's got enough armed lunatics to sort of back him up on that. So I feel like this is a time when we should definitely be pushing for more UK-EU ties, economic ties, bringing down more barriers to trade, and having those discussions, which I think are really, really important right now. I think that I'm not too bothered that Starmer isn't standing up and telling Trump to fuck off like Mark Carney is over in Canada. Because let Mark Carney do that. Let China put the retaliatory tariffs on it. We'll be smart about this, because how can we as consumers of American products damage America? Well, we just do it ourselves without telling them, if that means cancelling your Netflix subscription and getting your movies elsewhere, it's worth thinking about.
Well, that's the thing I always think about, though. It's like one of the few things they actually do well, because most of the problem is what Trump doesn't seem to get is like, it's because they're not buying our stuff. It's because of their currency manipulation. No, it's because you make shit. But there is some stuff,
crap stuff.
There's some obviously like entertainment stuff, like films and television stuff. People like that around the world, so they do that well. I mean, at the moment, so you've got to think as well, some American companies are standing up to it. So is it really fair to boycott them? For example, in Florida, DeSantis is picked a fight with Disney. MAGA are basically trying to force Disney to abandon their equality laws and employment, equality policies. So, by boycotting, so there are some American companies that are trying to stand up to it. Yeah. So is it really fair to boycott them?
Yeah.
So it is difficult, but I would certainly if anyone here is in the market for an EV, don't buy a Tesla at least. No. And if you have internet and you have a choice, don't use Starlink. Yes. I mean, I would certainly like it if someone could come up with a proper list of American companies who have properly voluntarily backed MAGA. Some of them have done it because they've been sort of bullied into it. Like even Amazon, there are plenty of reasons to boycott Amazon if you minded. But in actual fact, he was just Bezos was just bullied into sort of backing Trump ultimately. Whereas Musk's done it, was up for it. Yeah. Zuckerberg was up for it. There's a few others as well. So find those people that really tried to cozy up to Trump. Not after it was obvious he was going to win and they had to do it to save their businesses, but did it beforehand. Yeah. That's what I would think.
Optimistic nihilist is saying Trump's 3 trade buckets are vassals, neutral, and enemies. And also Russia, which I think is a separate bucket.
They're not going to get much trade out of Russia, even if he drops all the sanctions. It's quite hilarious.
I know, he doesn't want trade, he just wants love. It's like a character in a movie when they realise that they don't need money, they just need love. Phil, that's all they needed.
Yeah.
In life, it's Trump. He just loves Putin so much.
I don't think he's going the right way to getting this Nobel Peace Prize that he reckoned should be.
Well, I mean, I've got to say, there's what I would do if I was in charge, and one of the things I would definitely do, and I don't think Starmer's going to do this, but ban Teslas. Just ban them.
No, because that'd be illegal. We have laws. No, you can't suggest the government does something that's illegal. You can tighten standards.
Yeah, ban X.
Yeah, we can with the online. We can revise this Online Safety Act to say you've got to take this action, and if you don't, first you go through the process. So
the ICO makes a proclamation saying that these cars, these Teslas, are uploading information about everyone that they film walking over the street. If you cross the road in front of a Tesla, it's filming you and using facial recognition on you. And so if they say, look, that's against our freedom laws or whatever the fuck we call them.
The problem with that is, the problem with that is you'll also hit other technologies that people like. They're sort of doing the same thing.
What cars are filming you at the extent?
Not cars. Don't have to be cars. Like Tesla. Ring doorbells and stuff like that people use for for security.
Just be smart about it, because these Teslas are recording people in Teslas having sex, and then the engineers at Tesla are watching these tapes and putting them on the internet.
Yeah, well, there may be something you can do, but obviously, when you legislate for these things, it does get very complicated. I can understand how you do end up with it.
The legislation's already there. We've got privacy laws in this country. You use those laws. I'm not saying, because it takes a year to get anything legislated. So I'll just say use what's there.
There are things we could do anyway. I mean, I would just tariffs are the way to go with Tesla, because we're retaliating. Like I've had loads of people as well that have bought into Trump's bollocks about, well, he's only retaliated. It says retaliatory tariffs. It says it on his board. Look, well, why were we putting 10% tariffs on American products? We weren't.
Yeah.
We have never raised tariffs against American products. The only tariffs on American imports are the ones that America asked us to put there as part of past trade agreements. They're really low.
And also, this whole thing, just to go back to the WTO for a moment, it flies in the face of the most favoured nation laws, which are, of the WTO. If you're a member of the WTO, you're supposed to follow the rules of the WTO.
We don't do that, though.
And the problem is, he's doing this on country by country, and it's supposed to be on different commodities. So he should say, okay, all beef from everywhere gets 800%. And it's got to be from everywhere they don't have a trade deal with for beef. And he's just upended the way that trade has been carried out around the world for decades in a way that worked for most people.
But there's also, the WTO can't do anything because he screwed them over in his first term. Because I think by refusing to make an appointment on the sort of panel that hears complaints and stuff, and Biden did nothing to resurrect it either, because again, by this, and this is what I mean about it doesn't matter even if Trump disappears off into the sunset and someone else comes in place. There are certain things that a Democrat and a Republican president, who are both very different to each other, have both basically agreed. They both agreed that they're not actually interested in an international standard of laws when it comes to trading, because Biden didn't do anything to restore the WTO either, or its sort of complaints procedures, because he obviously thought because he obviously intended to break some of those rules, and America's strong enough to get away with it. So we have to just view that. It's a bit like, so take billionaires like Elon Musk. There's a fundamental problem with having people who are much richer than entire nations.
Yeah.
They become too powerful. Their wealth becomes too powerful. It becomes too influential. There's lots of problems with having individuals that are too wealthy.
Yeah, that's why we have monopolies and mergers. That's why we have antitrust laws. That's why we have, we should have taxes that go up to 95%.
A lot of people focus on the fact that it's the inequality, but a big problem is the fact it makes some individuals more powerful than entire countries, because their wealth is more powerful, greater than entire countries. And the same thing has happened on a national scale with America as well. It has become too powerful, and in actual fact, it would be no bad thing for the world if its economy became, not crash, we don't need to crash because that crashes everyone else's as well, but if it became a bit smaller, so it had to, so that you couldn't get a random madman taking over America and then feeling that it can bully everyone else all at once, because he's not even picking on one country at a time, he's trying it all at once.
He is picking a fight with the rest of the world that isn't American, and making us all feel really happy, warm and loving thoughts towards our American cousins. Hey, I
feel sorry for our American cousins.
I don't.
I've immense sympathy.
They fucking voted for it.
Not everyone did.
So.
Some didn't.
So what? Don't care.
And they're suffering as much as anyone else.
Are they?
Yeah.
Well, they should have fought back harder, shouldn't they? people who went, oh, but, you know, I can't vote for Kamala because of her stance on Gaza.
No, I'm not talking about the ones who didn't vote at all. Yeah, they're just as guilty as the ones who voted Trump. I mean, the ones who either tried to vote and were turned away, because there was a lot of that, or the ones who actually voted for Harris. They've got absolutely no...
Okay, I'll let them off.
They couldn't have done anything else.
But yeah. Optimistic Nihilist, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Optimistic Nihilist being incredibly generous this afternoon. He thinks he can railroad his vassal trade partners, secure major concessions from neutral trade blocs, and crush his enemies. It's a mob mentality. It is. It absolutely is. He is a mobster. He's a mob boss.
It makes no sense, though. It doesn't make any sense. Like, for example, take the Nike thing. So they produce a lot of their stuff in Vietnam. Vietnam's been hit with, I've forgotten it now, is it 40-odd% tariffs? So what he's thinking is, right, well, they'll have to bring that production back to 46%, back to the United States. So it's like, okay, so there's a reason why Nike and Apple and people like that have a lot of their production in Asia. It's not because they want, you know, they like to hire, it's not because their cousin has like a shipping company. It's because it's cheaper. So you try and bring that production to America and then say to Americans, good news, we've now got made in America tags. That'll be 50% more expensive, please.
Yeah.
You know, because if they could have brought if they could have had it in America, the production in America, they would have had it in America. But then you're asking Americans to pay 50% more for these goods when they're not getting 50% higher wages.
Stephen says in the chat, that's like Americans lumping you in with Brexit voters. But honestly, if you're from Scotland and you say to me, you stupid English bastards, you voted for Brexit,
40% of them,
I'm going to put my hands up and go, okay, yeah, I know I come from a city where we voted overwhelmingly to stay in the EU, but that's no defence. You know, I didn't do enough. I should have just gone around slapping everyone who said something incredibly stupid, like all their problems in their life were caused by the EU. Why do you think that? Oh, I was told it by a rich person. So yeah, I think we've got to take a little bit of responsibility in what we do. I feel I did fight against Brexit, but you know, we live in society, and I think it's been helpful because it's that thing, isn't it? When you know people say not all men, not all boomers, and you're like, well, enough of them. It makes it a problem, and saying not all men isn't actually alleviating that problem. The only way Trump is going to be out at any point in the next 10 years, unless he has a heart attack, is going to be a mass uprising of people. And you can't expect ethnic minorities and disabled people and trans people to lead that fight because they will be killed by the government. So it's got to be white people who are middle class, middle-aged, going out, taking to the streets, and general strike. One of my favourite generals.
The problem with that is, of course, first of all, unions are shite in America. And second of all, some of them are on Trump's side because they think they're going to get some extra manufacturing jobs.
Oh, I don't think it's going to happen for a while, but when it does happen.
They will get some, but of course there'll be net losses of jobs elsewhere. Like there were last time, it was literally... Trump, for every job, in the first time when he tried his tariffs, for every job he created, and there were some jobs created, he lost 5 more.
Wow.
Literally that ratio.
Wow.
And I don't see how it's going to be any different this time.
Trousers.
Because again, you know, you bring in production to America, it's like, so you'll be paying the prices for American workers to produce it. And you're going to be paying even more because China's just restricted your access to materials produced in China. Where are you going to get your raw materials from?
Yeah.
You know, you've picked a fight with China, you've picked a fight with Canada. They're not exactly on Ukraine's side. You know, where are they going to get these materials from?
Potash. They can
Russia
get from
produces
Russia, oil.
Well, some oil. Again, there's different types. Like, you know, America produces its own oil, but it's shit. So that's why they need so much Canadian oil. You know, you can't just...
Actually, their oil's really good. It's just they don't have the refineries to make, because they have very sweet oil, so that's low in sulfur. The sour oil is the kind of stuff that they need because that's what all their refineries are set up to deal with. Ironically enough,
you can't just go, we'll get it from this other part of the world because it's not necessarily the same stuff.
Well, yeah, but I'm
sure
that Trump doesn't understand the differences and different grades of oil because he doesn't. He's thick as pig shit. He doesn't sound.
He doesn't even understand property, and he's a property tycoon.
Well, he bankrupted 2 casinos. I mean, how do you bankrupt a casino?
Exactly.
You've got to be a terrible, terrible businessman. So
I think license to print money.
Vladimir Putin has said to him, put the tariffs on Canada, and Russia will sort you out with the oil and the potash and the gas and everything else you need. Donny boy. Anyway, yeah. I won't do my terrible vampire stroke Vladimir Putin impression again. Unless I get very drunk. Gallifreyan Ren, is there any good news about this week? I think we'd like to hear that there is. Well, first of all, the Wisconsin race, the Supreme Court in Wisconsin has gone to a liberal Democrat.
Does it?
Sorry?
Don't help us. There is potential. I mean, there could be good news. Things can work out. Like I say, of the UK, of all the countries in the world, does have potential with this, because I mean, if we'd never left the EU, it would just be wall-to-wall bad news, right? Even though we'd be in a stronger position. But because of Brexit, we have that possibility to reevaluate our trading relationships. For Trump to become about as popular as a carbuncle on your left bollock, and decide that actually our real friends are in Europe. So this could be used as a real fight back against Brexit and Farage, because he's still throwing his lot. He's actually, I don't know how he's done this. He's thick as mince himself sometimes. He's actually said, oh yeah, we should totally allow chlorinated chicken into the country.
Who said that? Farage?
Nigel Farage. I thought, how can you be that mental?
Do you not know how unpopular it is? He doesn't give a fuck. He only cares about what, Yeah, but
he usually knows what's unpopular. He usually goes a bit quiet. Like, he hasn't really said a lot about the tariffs. He's been a bit quiet about it. Even the Daily Mail today is making it clear this is Trump. It's Trump's tariff. There's some people trying to because some people think, why is our approach different to other countries? Because in lots of other countries, people are going, these are Trump's tariffs. He's a wanker. So in Canada, even the Conservatives are going, Trump's a wanker. In most other countries, like the Conservatives in America, in Germany, that are just sort of coming to power, are really sticking 2 fingers up at him. Whereas in this country, our Conservatives, including Reform UK, are deciding it's all Starmer's fault.
Yeah.
So, there's a fundamental difference in the politics. But even the Daily Mail are going, yeah, this is Trump.
Yeah.
This is Trump doing this.
Yeah. Indeed it is. It might be the downfall of all that lot. The Reform bastards have all put, there's something like 95% of the vacancy, the elections coming up for council seats next month is they've actually putting someone forward in all those seats. They're putting more candidates forward than Labour.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Labour aren't going to put, unless they put up a paper candidate, there's no point in some areas you're not going to win.
Yeah.
Reform UK, I mean, the vetting process doesn't seem to have played great guns. There's at least one of their candidates has tweeted out referring to someone as a black CU next Tuesday. So
nice.
To say they're not a racist party, they're still allowing their candidates
I'm just waiting for one
racial slurs.
Knock on the door over here and tell me that I should be voting refuck.
Have you got local elections there?
Yeah,
in Durham.
I've had the Greens. We've knock.
All right. We've only got mayoral elections. We're going to end up with pissing Andrea Jenkins as mayor.
Jenkins. The problem with
she's the Reform UK candidate for Greater Lincolnshire. The problem with Lincolnshire. But the problem with Lincolnshire, I really hope
the problem, there's just one, Phil. Come on.
Yeah, there is. See, in lots of other parts that you'd say are areas where, if you think about the typical area which, where Reform UK could break through, you're talking about old industrial areas or old coastal towns, ones that have undergone a certain economic decline over the past couple of generations. So you can understand it. It's we've seen a Labour government, we've seen a Conservative government, and our economy still, and they don't necessarily understand it's because times changed and no new industry sprang up, which, the government should help stimulate. So those are the usual sort of areas where you have lived through economic decline. But Lincolnshire doesn't have that excuse. Lincolnshire is just gammon. It would, even if times were great, even if we went through another golden age in this country, they would still vote for Reform UK because they're just gammon around here. It's because they're all inbred.
Yep.
Everyone looks like a potato around here.
Phil, tell us Tell us how you really feel. Anyway, listen, we better get going because we are 10 minutes over. But I just want to say to everyone watching, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. And thank you so much for my co-host, Phil Moorhouse of A Different Bias. If you're not already following Phil, you should subscribe to his channel. The link should be in the description of this video. And I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who's contributed in written form on the old chat there. Thank you for keeping that going all the way through the show, and especially huge, big, massive shout out to everyone who gave a super chat, and especially Optimistic Nihilist. That was incredibly generous of you. Thank you so much. I'll be back at 9:30 tonight for the Friday night armistice. No, Friday night social. And until then, I'd just like to say thank you so much for watching. Hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye. Give us a like.